What's going on? This is Saturday Afternoon Wrestling, and it is a great day to talk about wrestling because tonight, Saturday night, we have got AEW's World's End pay-per-view, the last pay-per-view of 2024. It is an absolutely stacked card as well. It looks like it's going to be another really strong show from an in-ring work rate standpoint, which basically every AEW show is. The card right now, as it stands, is 11 matches, 3 pre-show matches, 8 main card matches, so it will likely be another marathon type pay-per-view. I hope you have got 4 or so hours set aside at least to watch all this. So I'm just going to run through the card, kind of talk on the main things in here, make some previews and predictions, let everyone get on with their days so they can get ready, enjoy the show tonight, anything like that. Before I do, just want to say I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Hope anyone that's celebrating Hanukkah is having a very happy Hanukkah. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your either your winter break, your Hanukkah celebrations, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time out to watch or listen to this. It has been a crazy year that I did not expect this to become as popular as it's been, which is weird to say because it's not like it's crazy popular, but like even the small audience I've been able to find has been insane to see. It's kind of the last thing I ever expected. So I appreciate anyone taking the time to check this out, whether it's on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app, or even just through like the shorts on TikTok and YouTube and things like that. It's crazy to see. So enough about that. Let's get to the main reason we're here, which is AEW World's End. It was a really strong week in AEW. We had the last episode for at least the foreseeable future for AEW Rampage. And I'll get to that because I thought the way that they pulled it off the air was actually really, really well done. They incorporated it really well into this main event storyline. But we've got a lot of matches to get through before we get to that. So let's start with the pre-show. I am on Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia order. So we will see what we got. So first up on the pre-show, the 0 hour, we have got Toni Storm versus Layla Gray. Toni Storm has been doing incredible work since she came back with this amnesia gimmick, acting like she's just now debuting in AEW. I don't think they've been playing all of the stuff that they've been recording on the actual shows. So if you've not seen like the clips of her going around different places and like reacting like it's her first time there, cannot recommend that enough on AEW social media and YouTube. They've been using it really nicely to fill out this storyline, and I think this is also a really good showcase for Toni Storm and her abilities because she has those moments with like the minor callbacks and little mannerisms of timeless Toni Storm, and even Outcast's Toni Storm as well from that time period, and like she's just playing it all off so well. And so it's a bummer to see her on the pre-show here, but at the same time, like I'm curious to see if there's really any sort of development that's coming for this character. I can't imagine they would do all that on the pre-show, but who knows? They pack all of these shows so much that there is a chance there'll be something. Overall, though, I'm just excited to see her back in this gimmick in particular, and like taking this gimmick and making it somehow fresh again with this amnesia thing. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm gonna say I think Toni Storm wins this pretty easily, but the whole thing will be whatever she does, either like in the final minutes of the match or after the match or anything, because that'll be where the story beats, whatever happens, wherever they are, like that's where they'll be. Next up on the 0 hour, we've got Jeff Jarrett and QT Marshall in a singles match. If Big AJ did not break his foot, I would feel like this would be like the perfect spot for him to run in and keep this QT Marshall feud going. There was like this weird thing that happened, I want to say last week, where AJ and MJF had a stare down involving a QT Marshall match. I can't remember the promotion it was. It was a smaller independent promotion. And it's just incredible. Like if we get a big AJ MJF feud in 2025, it's going to be amazing. We already know Big AJ is the work rate king now. So you know what? Sign me up. If his foot heals and he can go, let's do it. Revolution, I think, is in LA. If I could get a ticket to go see MJF and AJ wrestle, man, what a 2025 that would be. What a treat that would be for me. But anyways, enough about that. Jeff Jarrett is still out here putting on great matches in 2024. And it's incredible to see. I did not think he would be in AEW this long. I did not think he would be this prominent in AEW. Above all else, I did not think he would be this awesome. And it's honestly shame on me for not thinking he would be this awesome. Like, I should have known that Double J would not let the people down. So I think Jeff Jarrett wins this. Whether there's interference or anything, I think this is a Jeff Jarrett win. And, you know, I'm thrilled about. I'm really excited to see that. I find myself unironically loving just about everything Jeff Jarrett has been doing in this AEW run. And then the last advertised pre-show match, 0 hour match, is the Outrunners and Top Flight taking on Lio Rush, Action Andretti, and the Murder Machines, Lance Archer and Brian Cage. What a nickname for those guys. I don't think I realized that they were calling them the Murder Machines, but that's fantastic. And this split with Lio Rush and Action Andretti wearing the spiky jackets now and being heels has been really well done. They're a smart team. They're a smart team together. The two of them are a really good pair. And so I'm excited to see what this heel gimmick can kind of do. And I think that this is probably a heels win here, so I don't think it'll be the last match like it's listed here. So I'm going to say Lio Rush, Action Andretti, and the Murder Machines get it. And I think this will be a really good match too, just depending on how much time that they have. Because the Outrunners remain probably one of the most over groups in AEW. And them continually being on the 0 hour is a bummer. I think they'll probably find themselves a little more prominently placed on the card in 2025, if I had to guess. And Top Flight, I feel like they occupy that role where wherever you put them, they're going to just have a good performance. So I see this being a really entertaining match that I think the heels steal the win. Maybe some heel thing that Action Andretti or Lio Rush do in particular to further solidify this split from Top Flight. But yeah, really, I'm not, shouldn't say surprised at the quality of the 3 pre-show matches, because they tend to put a lot of people on these 0 hour shows. But I do think that these will be 3 really fun matches, and I think they'll be, whatever they decide to end with will be a good feed into the main show, which I don't know if this is what the opening match is, but if it is going to be a tough task for anyone else to follow because it is listed as Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in the Continental Classic semifinal. Now, their first match a few months ago was just unbelievable. It was basically like start to finish perfect. It was incredible to watch. And the Continental Classic, if you have not been watching it or have missed any of the matches, go back and watch them because they have been so worth it. It's been incredible to see the work that some of these guys have been doing. I do want to say one thing that I do not like is the treatment of the Beast Mortos here, who finished the Continental Classic with 0 points. Don't like that. I don't like the Brody King finished with 6. Stuff like that. Like, Commander gets 3. He was a replacement, so I kind of understand, but that's kind of weird that was going to be Juice Robinson, too, when you think about like how mega over he is. But Beast Mortos with 0, Brody King with 6. It just feels like those guys could be given a little bit more opportunity to see what they can do. But all of the matches in this have been incredible. I really cannot speak highly enough about what a success this Continental Classic has been. Even last week, we had Will Ospreay and Brody King, and that match was unbelievable. Like, it's so interesting to see someone like Will Ospreay who can fly around like he does, and he's as agile as he is, then pick up Brody King and hit him with a Stormbreaker that looks absolutely effortless. It's a testament to how good he is and how good Brody King is, honestly, that they can make everything in that match look so smooth and effortless. I really enjoyed that one. That might have been my favorite out of the entire Continental Classic, to be honest. I loved the way those guys worked together. So now we have the finals for the Gold and the Blue Leagues, and the Gold League is Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Protege and mentor once again. Kyle Fletcher got the huge clean win where he dominated Will Ospreay at the end of their match, hitting him with finisher after finisher after finisher and just unloading. And I don't know what to make of this. I think this is such an interesting Final Four that we have. So I guess I'll bring in the other one because you can't really talk about one without the others. The other Continental Classic semifinal is Kazuchika Okada, who is the current Continental Champion, taking on Ricochet, who is like fully gone in on this heel character, where now he's just like crazy sniveling heel with the Jadakiss laugh and like just crazy. And he's really leaned into it, and he's on Twitter trying to dunk on people, and people are dunking on him depending on what you think. Just crazy stuff, but he's clearly having a good time with this character. And more importantly, AEW is seemingly pretty like locked in on this character. So it feels crazy to say that Okada would lose here and would lose the Continental title here. But depending on what happens later in the show, I kind of see a lane that we could go. So I'm going to say that I think Ricochet gets the upset and beats Okada, obviously with like a low blow or a handful of tights or foot on the ropes or an exposed term, like some sort of cheater stuff is going to like sneak by with this tainted win. And he'll move on to the final. I think ultimately he wins. And so it's really, for me at this point, does he beat Will Ospreay or does he beat Kyle Fletcher? And they've gone all in on Kyle Fletcher being this monster heel lately. Like, he's really been built strong. So there's a part of me that, you know what, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to say Kyle Fletcher beats Will Ospreay again and continues this like descent for Will Ospreay, who keeps kind of losing in these big matches. And Kyle Fletcher moves on to the final. Kyle Fletcher beats Ricochet again. And we get Kyle Fletcher as the Continental Champion, and we keep Konosuke Takeshita as the International Champion, and we have that Don Callis faction. There's 2-star wrestlers in the faction holding gold. That's what I'm going to say. I you know what? I'm probably so wrong, too, with how many ways that this could go. But I'm gonna say I think that's the way we're going with this. Is we're gonna get a Ricochet Fletcher rematch. It's going to be another banger, because I think that was the first match Ricochet had in AEW once he joined after the pay-per-view. I think that was his first Dynamite match. So I'm gonna say Fletcher gets the win again, and we're off and running with this belted up Don Callis family. Speaking of, the next match listed here is Konosuke Takeshita versus Powerhouse Hobbs for the AEW International title. I think this is probably a Takeshita win. I think this is probably going to be a really fun match, though, because Takeshita has that like brutal, hard-hitting style, and Powerhouse Hobbs is quite literally possibly the strongest person on the AEW roster. The dude is an absolute tank of a performer. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't see them having Fletcher win and Takeshita drop his belt so soon into all of this. So I'm going to say Takeshita retains, but that this is like a sneaky, really good match. And then next we have the first of 2 women's matches. We have Mariah May defending the AEW Women's Championship against Thunder Rosa in a Tijuana street fight. It's probably going to be brutal. I feel like both of these women are like in a pretty comfortable spot in these types of matches. I really like Thunder Rosa. I think she is a strong champion for AEW's women's division. I think she's a good champion because she can have a lot of good versatile matches. I just don't think it's happening now. I think this is a Mariah May victory, a Mariah May retaining who's next type of thing. We move on to the next challenge, but the thing that has me stumped here is I don't know what that next challenge is. Like, I don't know if the end game is Toni Storm getting her memory back and like challenging Mariah May and getting the belt back, because that doesn't feel like quite 100% satisfying on paper. We had Mina Shirakawa come up short. I don't think it would be like it feels like it has to be someone from in that universe almost, with how they've been telling this story. So I'm a little like, I don't know if anyone from the outside of that story can take it, but I also don't know like if they would actually do that where they just put it right back on Toni Storm, even if enough time has passed, if they would do that. So it's really in such an odd spot. She's in such an odd place with how they've been booking everything. But I'm going to say Mariah May retains here. This is probably going to be just some crazy match with both of them, like just bumping around like nobody's business. The Tijuana Street Fight, I think the last one Thunder Rosa had, or the last like extreme match she had, was something similarly crazy, where it was like, oh, okay, they're really leaving it all out here. So I fully expect that to be a show-stopping match. But I do think this is going to be a Mariah May win. Next up, we have probably the most convoluted story in AEW. MJF with the AEW Dynamite Diamond ring, versus Adam Cole, who is fighting for that, but also fighting for, I guess, revenge, because he turned on Adam Cole, or he turned on MJF and then got hurt, and then came back and was all of a sudden a babyface, and MJF was a heel, and so now it's MJF's fault that Adam Cole betrayed him. Just such a convoluted story that the sooner they get this over with, the better, because putting it on hold for them to both be healthy and back and ready to go just feels like such a miss when you consider how hot their feud was last year. It's crazy to see what a difference a year makes. And it's unfortunate what injuries can take away from a story like that, because it was like the hottest story in AEW. Those guys were killing it as a tag team. They were so good. They had everyone so invested, and to see where it's at now is really it's crazy to see how far it has fallen in just a few short months, honestly. So the sooner they get this done with, the better. I think MJF makes a lot more sense holding the diamond ring. I think we're at a point now, honestly, where fans are even wondering, like, why is this happening? Why are we treating Adam Cole like the good guy? MJF's kind of making a lot of sense here. So the sooner they bail out on this, the better. Because if their plan is to keep MJF a heel and Adam Cole a babyface, they need to just be as far away as possible, unless the ultimate story here is bringing them together again, but I cannot see that happening right now. So, official pick, I'm going to say MJF. Next up, we have our second women's match, the TBS Championship. Mercedes Moné, the champion, defending against Chris Statlander. This is one that I've probably thought about the most. We have Mercedes Moné, who has been having better matches as of late. Her stories have been a little bit better. They had the whole thing with Camille, where Camille left, and now no one really knows what her status is in the company, I guess, which seems kind of weird. So I don't know what they're thinking or are going to do here with this. And Chris Statlander is someone who, like, I love to pick in these matches, and then she just never wins. Is kind of how it's been picking her the last couple months. So I really don't know. Like, I want to say Chris Statlander wins, because I don't know, like, this Mercedes gimmick with the two belts and everything is kind of stale. They need to get her moving to something else, something more meaningful that she can sink her teeth into. I know she has the match in Tokyo at the start of the year, so, there's a really strong chance she's holding both. You know what? I'm going to use that and say that she is going to 100% win this match, because she's going to walk into the Tokyo Dome holding those belts, and that'll be that. And then, maybe in January we'll see about someone taking one of them off of her, or what the plan is going to be. Maybe Mina Shirakawa beats her for, I think it's the New Japan Strong title, the women's Strong title. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Mercedes Moné wins this and heads into the Tokyo Dome as the double champ, and then the story for her unfolds from there. For Chris Statlander, what a bummer. There was the whole heel turn, and then, like, turned right back into a babyface. Stokely Hathaway is just, like, not mentioned at all. No one knows what happened with that or why it was dropped so suddenly. And it feels like it really killed a lot of momentum for her, turning her heel in the first place. For it to be handled like that. Like, she had so much momentum going, that to turn heel and then turn back so quickly without much of an explanation is really a bummer, given the quality of matches that she was having, really both as a face and as a heel. So hopefully she can find some solid footing, because she's one of those that I think is, like, super low-key, like a pillar of the women's division. She's someone that you put in the ring with anyone else, and you're probably going to get a good match. And that type of versatile performer in a women's division can go a long way. Like, you have her and Mercedes Moné, and it's probably going to be the best match, or one of the best matches Mercedes has had in AEW. Their first match was certainly one of, if not Mercedes' best match in AEW. And that's because Chris Statlander works that style where she can be, the powerhouse that throws Mercedes around and Mercedes can bump like crazy for her and everything. And so I'm really interested in this. I think it's probably more of a foregone conclusion that Mercedes wins this than I thought initially sitting down to record this, now that I'm like talking about it. So I'm going to say Mercedes wins, but I think it's a really strong showing again for the both of them, and that kind of like feeds into more optimism going forward. The next listed is the final for the Continental Championship, which we talked about earlier. It's the Okada or Ricochet versus Fletcher or Ospreay. I think it's going to be Fletcher beating Ricochet in the final. And again, I could be way off on this, where there's so many possibilities that they could want to go. This could be an Ospreay championship win. This could be Okada retains. This could be Ricochet wins to fully get over this heel gimmick. But given how the work that they've put into Kyle Fletcher, I'm going to say it's a Kyle Fletcher win. But none of those other alternatives would surprise me at all. And then we have our main event here. The last match of the night is the 4-way match for the AEW World title. Jon Moxley defending against Orange Cassidy, Hangman Adam Page, and Switchblade Jay White. This is crazy. What a crazy storyline this has all turned into. Jon Moxley and the Death Riders running roughshod on AEW right now. They popped up on Friday night tonight on the last episode of Rampage and just randomly like took out Darby Allin, who's not involved in this match. They took him out with the chair over his head, stomp on it and break his neck type thing, and then they threw him down a flight of stairs. And then Jon Moxley went into the production truck and said, like, take this off the air. I'm done with this. Like, take this off the air now. And Rampage cut to black, and that was the end of the show. And that's the last episode. And so I really like that. I like using, Moxley's like power trip and like, we got to get AEW into shape and people are, lazy and complacent here. Let's get rid of this. Let's do that. Like, I think that that's a really smart move to fold that into the storyline like this, with it being so public that Rampage did not make this new TV deal. And no one knowing really what the status is going to be going forward. I think that that's a really smart move to add this as something else that they've done to like exert force and control over AEW. I just don't see this as being the end of this story, and I've said this a couple times now. I don't know who it is that ends this story. Because like the way they did Darby Allin here tonight in this match in the Rampage episode, and the fact that he gave up his title shot in a match to Moxley, like it was supposed to be Darby and Bryan Danielson, and at Wrestle Dream. So the fact that like all that kind of stuff is still hanging over makes me think that this is ultimately going to be a Darby Allin win. But the story here is, can these three guys put their egos aside enough to focus on the task, which is beating Jon Moxley and someone else winning the title? And I think that that's probably going to be the story of this match on commentary. I think that's probably the story they're going to be telling, is every one of them wants their pound of flesh and wants their justice, rather than looking at the big picture and AEW as a whole. And so I think this is going to be a Jon Moxley win. I think after this match is going to be extremely interesting. I've seen a lot of talk about, like, the promos for this show have been Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, like, driving through the desert in a truck. Jon Moxley gets out and launches a flare into the sky. And I've seen a lot of talk about the flare, and if it means, like, summoning someone else to come join their squad, or signaling that someone else is coming, or what it could be. And if Eddie Kingston hadn't like torn everything in his leg, I could see him being a really good get for this Death Rider story, someone that the fans really love and would be devastated to see turn to this. So my initial thought here is Kenny Omega, because there's all sorts of reports that he is supposed to be back this weekend in AEW, because he's going to be at that New Japan show, wrestling his first match in a long time against Gabe Kidd. So it makes sense to have him debut here and then next week he pops up on New Japan rather than he just comes back at New Japan and then like reintegrates over to AEW. So in my head, the storyline of Jon Moxley wanting AEW to change and be different and everything, Kenny Omega coming back and being like, hey, I'm one of the founders of AEW, you're not going to destroy my vision, or Kenny Omega coming back and turning mega heel, like, yeah, you're right, this isn't what I founded this place to be, could be a huge swerve as well. I think we still have Bryan Danielson at some point coming back. Obviously, who knows with his status actually, given his medical issues and everything, but I think that there's a chance for him to come back into the fold. I think Swerve Strickland is someone that is still waiting in the wings here. And then honestly, also, Darby Allin has been heavily recruiting Will Ospreay into this story. So I think if Will Ospreay does not win the Continental title, it makes sense for him to start to slowly get sucked into this main event level feud as well and to kind of get into this storyline. But the reason I think Jon Moxley is retaining is the same reason that I think Kazuchika Okada is losing the Continental title. That is Kenny Omega. I think ultimately this is going to be Moxley wins and we get the parallel shot of Kenny Omega sneaking up behind Moxley like we got on the very first episode of Dynamite, where Moxley debuted and attacked Omega. And I think their plan, if I had to guess, AEW's plan would probably involve an Omega Okada match pretty quickly on one of their bigger shows. Who knows how much time Omega is going to be wrestling more? Like, this injury I know was a serious one. I believe it was diverticulitis. And he had a ton of issues with that, a ton of different things that needed healing. And he always talks about, like, you know, how much longer he has and leaving wrestling in a better spot than when he started wrestling. So he really speaks kind of like openly in those types of terms. And it makes me think that there's going to be an urgency to get that match for AEW on one of their premiere shows. So like doing that, like having Kenny Omega come in and ultimately be the one to save AEW, only to then cross paths again with Omega or with Okada, whether it's through, you know, he becomes the number one contender somehow, or he just calls him out, or what it could be. That makes a lot of sense to me. Especially like bookending the start of the show with their new media deal happening now 5 years later with Moxley and Omega as like the two bookends of it. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm gonna reel myself in here from this fantasy booking explosion that just happened. And I'm gonna say quite simply, I think Jon Moxley retains. I could see someone else maybe stealing the title. Christian still has the contract thing that he has to bring to the ring and sign and turn in, and I don't know, maybe it needs to be notarized. I don't know what the rules are on this thing. So he's still hanging around as well. I'm sure he'll make his presence known because that's kind of just, you know, how these finishes go. They get super overbooked. So I'm expecting a huge overbooked bedlam at the end of this show, whether it's in the match itself or immediately after. But I think we get our preview for where AEW is going in the next couple months in the new year. And I really think that it's a Okada, Moxley, Omega top of the card with the potential of like a Will Ospreay and Darby Allin sprinkled in as well. So there we go. We have got AEW World's End. Here are all my picks. Tony Storm over Layla Gray. Jeff Jarrett over QT Marshall. The Leo Rush Action Andretti Murder Machines team over Outrunners and Top Flight. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, Kazuchika Okada, and Ricochet. I believe the finals of the Continental Classic will be Kyle Fletcher beating Ricochet. I believe Takeshita will retain the International Championship over Powerhouse Hobbs. Mariah May retains over Thunder Rosa. MJF wins the Dynamite Diamond Ring for, I think, the 5th straight year over Adam Cole. And that feud is hopefully over. Mercedes Moné retains over Statlander. Okada, no, and Jon Moxley retains over Hangman Adam Page, Switchblade Jay White, and Orange Cassidy. So those are my picks. Let me know what you were thinking, or if you're seeing this after the show, let me know how you did with your choices or what your thoughts were on the show itself. I said it before at the beginning, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to watch this or listen to this wherever they are right now. I appreciate anyone who spent any time hanging out over this last year. I have what I hope are some cool things that are going to happen in the coming year. So if you are new to this channel or seeing this for the first time, please consider subscribing and hanging out. I got some cool stuff planned, so now get in now on the ground floor. You can be like, hey, I was here before it blew up and got super cool. Probably not going to happen, but you never know. It's always better to be ahead just in case. So that is that. I hope everyone continues to have a good holiday break. I hope everyone's celebrating Hanukkah. It's a very happy Hanukkah. Stay safe, enjoy the weekend, and enjoy AEW World's End. I will see you soon.